Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Bava Kamma. We are up to Perek Chet Mishnah Hey. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'ilun Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Ranbai Eliyahu ben Burcha Israel of Chana ben Miriam Sason ben Raya and Yoshua ben Shifra Menuchatam beGan Eden Amen Elavdi ben Chaim leChaim v'derefua Shelema of Daniel Shalom ben Rosa betoch Shah Cholei Yisrael and the Achlama Mera of Binyamin Od Zion Chai ben Dvorah. Like Mishnah 3, this Mishnah is based on the rule that one who becomes liable to a death penalty and a monetary payment at the same time is exempt from the payment. The earlier Mishnah cited two cases where this rule does not apply, and now this Mishnah cites two similar cases where it does apply. If someone strikes his father or his mother and inflicts a wound upon them, meaning he draws blood or makes a bruise, or if someone wounds another on Shabbat, Patur Mikulan is exempt from making any of the 5 payments because he is punished with losing his life instead. Another case in which an attacker is exempt, and someone who wounds his own Canaanite slave is exempt from making any of the payments because the slave belongs to him. Although it is wrong for a master to even treat his Canaanite slave harshly, let alone wound him, as the Rambam discusses in Echot Avadim chapter 9 Lecha 8, he is exempt from payment. And that is then a Mishnah Hey. Mishnah Vav lists certain cases where the sages established the standard payment for embarrassing someone. The other payments incurred in these cases, damage, pain, healing, and loss of employment, are assessed according to the methods described in Mishnah 1. But again, here we're going to give cases where the sages established the standard payment for embarrassing someone. Someone who punches another must give him a sela 4 zuz for the embarrassment he caused. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Yehuda says, in the name of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Maneh, he must give him a Maneh 100 zuz. The Rav does tell us that Echad does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says to give a Maneh. Setaron noten lo 200 zuz. If he slapped him on his cheek, which is more embarrassing than being punched, he must give him 200 zuz. Lachar yadon noten lo 400 zuz. If he slapped him on his cheek with the back of his hand, which is even more embarrassing, he must give him 400 zuz. Tsaram be'ozno, if he pulled his ear. Talash b'saro, he pulled out his hair. Rakak v'gia bo ruko, or spat at him and his spit landed on him. He'evil talito mimenu, or removed his cloak from him. Para rosh ha'isha b'shuk, or uncovered the head of a woman in the street. Noten 400 zuz, he must give him or her 400 zuz. The Mishnah adds that these amounts are maximum. Zak klal, however, this is the rule. Hakol lefi chvodo, everything depends on his level of honor. The more honorable the victim, the greater his embarrassment. The amounts that the Mishnah listed earlier are required only if the victim was an important person. People of lesser status suffer less embarrassment and therefore receive smaller amounts. The next Tana disagrees. Amar Rabbi Akiva said, "Afilu aniyim shebiYisrael ro'in otam kilu hem bnei chorin sheyardu minichsehem." Even the poorest Jews are considered like noblemen who have lost their wealth. Shem bnei Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, because they are all the children of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Therefore, the amounts listed earlier in the Mishnah are paid to any victim, regardless of his or her apparent importance. According to Rabbi Akiva, poor people are treated like wealthy people who lost their money, who are still highly sensitive to shame. Since there are wealthy people who are less sensitive to shame, and there are poor people who are more sensitive, it is difficult to assess each person individually. Everyone is therefore treated equally. The Rav does tell us, Rabbi Akiva, that Rav does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. The Mishnah relates an incident where Rabbi Akiva applied his ruling in practice. It once happened that someone uncovered the head of a woman in the street. She came before Rabbi Akiva to judge her case. And he obligated her assailant to give her 400 zuz for her embarrassment, following his view that everyone is paid equally. Although she was poor, Rabbi Akiva obligated her assailant to pay her the full amount of 400 zuz, which the first Tana would award only to a very honorable person. Amar lo Rabbi tan zman, he said to Rabbi Akiva, my teacher, give me time to come up with the money. V'natan lo zman, so Rabbi Akiva gave him time. Shmara umedet al petach hatzera, the assailant waited for her until he saw her standing at the entrance of her courtyard, where she could be seen publicly. V'shavar et hakad b'fanea ubo ki isar shemen. And then he broke a jug in front of her containing an isar's worth of oil, meaning the jug contained a small amount of oil, which could be purchased with as little as an isar, a coin of little value. Giltat Roshad, the woman uncovered her head, and began scooping up some of the spilled oil and putting her hand on her head to apply the oil to her hair. He set up witnesses to see what she was doing and testify against her, and he came with them before Rabbi Akiva. He said to Rabbi Akiva, my teacher, to this woman who disgraced herself and uncovered her own head for such a small amount of oil, I must give 400 zuz. She herself has demonstrated that she is not embarrassed to uncover her head in public. Rabbi Akiva said to him, you have said nothing, meaning your argument is flawed. Because we find that someone who wounds himself, even though he is not permitted to do so, is exempt from liability as there is no one to pay. The commentators explain a Nazir is called a sinner because he denied himself the pleasure of drinking wine. Certainly then it is a sin for someone to injure himself. And Rabbi Akiva says we see in that situation, even though he's not allowed, he's exempt from liability as there is no one to pay. Yet others who wound him are liable. Also, someone who cuts down his own saplings, even though he is not permitted to do so, one who needlessly destroys a fruit tree, violates the prohibition in Dvarim, chapter 20, verse 19, who shall not destroy its trees, Bal Tashchit, he's exempt from liability. Yet others who cut down his saplings are liable, meaning, even though he does not seem to care about his own body or tree since he injured himself or cut them down himself, others who do the same thing to him are obligated to pay. Therefore, the fact that this woman disgraced herself is not a reason to exempt someone else who embarrassed her from making payment. And that is Anabotai today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.